Record now. Okay. Yeah. Ready. Yeah.
Okay. So, Bismillah. I wanted to first begin by saying how, like our last session, and how important it is to ask questions, because even though I've been doing this for 25 years, and 25 years ago I was working with a graphic artist and who helped me kind of draw the Enneagram, Brother Ahmad pointed out last time that the line between 1 and 8, 8 minus and 1 plus, has no function. So I realized that he's absolutely right. So now we have to remove that line.
I promise that I'm going to do this. Maybe tomorrow I'll do it. And
sure, no problem. Yeah, whenever you have time. So I wanted to thank you so much for noticing that. That's was very important. But the other 3 lines that he mentioned, we're calling the lines of restoration, because we're restoring from the lack of quality to the quality itself. So the line between 9 with a small circle and 9 star, or 6 or 3, coming to the center, when we're dealing with surgery, then that of the 3, 6, and 9, then those lines are important, but not the line between 1 and 8. So thank you, Brother Ahmad.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome.
So now we're going to continue the concept of shape. And those of you who had the course previously remember these 3, and then how geometry is important in the traditional world. And these are geometric expressions of the numbers 3, 6, and 9. The equilateral triangle expresses the number 3, of course, and then doubling it, inverting the equilateral triangle upon itself, becomes the 6, or the hexagram. This is also called the Seal of Solomon, or the Star of David as well. And 3 times 3 is 9, or the Ennead, where each of the 3 equilateral triangles reflect the symmetry of the order, showing multiplicity and unity. And this symbol is very important today. As we go forward, there'll be some explanation more about the Ennead. So now, again, geometry, the center point and the circle. The center point symbolizes the 0, the egoless self, the morally healed, having won the greater struggle, a fair and just person who has unveiled the spiritual heart. And when our willpower accepts the call, we are regulated by reason in a state of balance and harmony, centered in the positive traits of temperance, courage, and wisdom. And if another benefits from this centeredness, or keeping them in moderation, we have attained the goal, that of being a fair and just person towards the Creator, the self, and others. So reason held in moderation is now in control. Reason being our cognition. So when our cognition is in control of our temperance and courage and wisdom, of course, wisdom as well, it has to be itself in moderation, then we know that we're ready to become fair and just people when someone benefits from our fairness. Or we can call it the ABC of the self. But it's the idea that reason would discipline our nafsa amare, or our nafsa natere would discipline our nafsa amare. Now, again, 3, we're looking at 3 as a triangle. 3 triangles in the sign of God's presence are, these 3 are water signs, 3 by 3 division with 3 segments, the center one, and the last one is the sign of the symbol of the spiritual heart. So left here, in the traditional view, the self has 3-fold division, which we know, manifested in the cold and wet as both signs upon the horizon and within themselves. So this is Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio in the zodiacal signs. They're the cold and wet signs, or water signs, and that's how we divide up our basic 3-fold division of the self. Then when perfected, as a result of the greater struggle for reason to be in control of our free will, we have the ability to surmount nature, it's called, in alchemical terms. That means to go above nature. So we have two kinds of nature, of course. One is our fitratullah, which is our good nature with which we were created by God. But then we have our instinctive qualities, which are basically the nafs amare, that is part of nature that we have to surmount or discipline. The center is an equilateral triangle, clusters around the center point, symbolizing self-esteem, courage or behavior, and wisdom or cognition. So that's what this is. And this triangle is actually the fourth way. It's a symbol of the fourth way that Gurdjieff talked about. So when justice is, I have to move my screen down a little bit.
The triangle of the fourth way is the red one in the middle, you mean?
Yes, yes, because that's the three cardinal virtues with justice in the center.
Okay.
So when justice is manifested, confirmed by another, that's this one, the spiritual heart has been turned towards the light, manifesting the soul at peace, or the nafs mutma'inna. So we have the nafs natighe, or actually it's also the nafs, nafs natighe they call it, controlling or disciplining our nafs amare, which are these two parts here, and then this is our spiritual heart. And remember how our nafs amare is in battle with our nafs natighe, our reason, to control our spiritual heart.
But Professor Laleh, I'm not following the second.
مايك just يعني organize بس حكايه الاسئله بالريزنج هاندز، اوكي؟ عشان بس لو نخليها في يعني بعد ما نخلص كل بورشن. It's better, okay? Hello?
Yes.
Sure.
You can ask this question بس خلينا بعد كده ننظمها بكل شيء عشان التسجيل بس يبقى one stream.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to ask this question now?
Well, we're almost finished shape, and then
Okay.
2 more slides, and then we get into space. So that would be good time for questions.
Okay. Should I ask now or wait until?
Yeah, just 2 more, and then when we finish this section, yeah.
Okay.
So again, we're looking at 3 geometry. 3 is the triangle, and this, remember, was the spiritual heart. It's revealed by the light of the nature originated by God, or our fitratullah. It is now able to relate to nature and others in its role as trustee because it's oriented towards the spiritual, away from the material. So this is the goal, is to orient our bodies and our soul and our spirit away from the material world towards the spiritual world. Then now in control of the spiritual heart, spiritual warriors, or the fatat, have attained victory in the struggle with the passions versus reason for the attention of the spiritual heart. And then we just do a quick summary of shape and so forth.
Okay.
So we move through the numbers and geometry as expressions of archetypes, mathematics and numbers, the human being as the unity of measure, the science of numbers and letters, the individual numbers that we looked at of 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9. We didn't look specifically at 2 and 8. We could have, but it would just have added to the book at that time. And the geometry of the circle, center point, and the triangle, all integral aspects of the Sufi Enneagram, or Vajullah, confirmed by the Quranic verses. Remember the 9 groups of people? That's in Surah 27, verses 48 to 83. And now we're going to move into the concept of space, and another one of the most amazing experiences of the macrocosmic, microcosmic correspondence of the Sufi Enneagram. So this means the macrocosmic is the universe, and the microcosmic is the human being. So, Mai, did you have a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Mai.
Yes, on the last, the previous slides, the first slides today.
This one?
No, after that one.
This?
No, it was
No.
the other. This one.
Yes.
This
Yes, I'm not following the dotted red lines in the second
Right. It's
diagram.
just showing the radii,
Center.
how they connect. For instance, the point of 5, how it connects. That's the line of that. This is the line of, I'm sorry, 4. This is the line of 3. This is the line of 2. This is the line of 1. All of them, how they're just, it's kind of a symbolic sign of how they all relate to the center. But
Okay.
yeah, so the main point is that is this triangle here that they all pass through to get, that's how they form the heart, spiritual heart, or the fourth way.
And why we are calling it a fourth way?
Well, that's what Gurdjieff called it. It's based on the 4 virtues of wisdom, temperance, courage, and justice. It's called, he called it the fourth way. Actually, I'm not sure what the first, second, and third ways are, but this is the fourth way.
Okay.
Does anyone know Gurdjieff?
Yes, he was referring the three ways. He named them the way of the faqir.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, the 3 ways: the way of the faqir, which is in the gut, or the way the spiritual is in the heart, and the other way, which is the monk, the way of the monk.
Right.
The Buddhist.
Yeah.
The head.
So that's right. It was faqir, yogi, and the Buddha, monk.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he combined them all together, and he said that there should be a balance between all the 3 centers, and was this fourth way.
That's right. Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Is that good, Mai?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So now we're going to get to the concept of space. So we have seen this drawing before of us. We have to imagine our body, that we're standing in a space and we're looking out towards the world, and through our soul to the spirit, which is somewhere out there. We don't know where in the universe, but this is called the Zahir, the manifest, the manifest way of looking at the universe. And this is the hidden, or the batin, where this circumference is our body, and we're looking through our body, through our soul, our nafs, to our ruh, or spirit, or that center that we're trying to reach, which we can call the spiritual heart. The concept of space is based on the Quranic sign. We will cause them to see our signs on the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. And this is Surah 41, verse 53. There's a correspondence between the macrocosm and the microcosm. Each contains 3 divisions of body, soul, and spirit. So this is the macrocosmic view, and this is the microcosmic view within ourselves. The Sufi Enneagram contains the manifest in its correspondence with the revolutions of the planets, Saturn and Jupiter, as we will see, and the hidden is a placeless space, this space in here, that has a direction towards the center, the sign of moral healing. So we're going to find out more about the planets Saturn and Jupiter, and as part of this macrocosmic view of the world.
Can you shed some light on the placeless space thing?
Right, because it's within us. This is within our body. It's our soul, the area of our nafs. So it's kind of placeless. It's kind of every place and not any place. We can't. We're not at this point able to say exactly what this the soul within us is. We know parts of what it is, but it's kind of a placeless space because it's moving all around every place. It doesn't stay in one place.
Everywhere and it's nowhere at the same time.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah. So following the sign, the chronic sign, we first turn towards the manifest. Here are the signs upon the horizon, the macrocosmic correspondences in the traditional sciences of astrology, balance, this was Mizan, and cosmology. So these are the six, considered the six directions, and everything follows one of these six directions, either north, south, east, and west, up or down, zenith or nadir. So this nadir. So this then is the six the six directions of the universe. One of the most significant natural phenomena to the seekers of moral balance are the 12 constellations, zodiac, or fixed stars. They're called the fixed stars because they move slowly. God swears an oath by them in the Quran, by the sky displaying the zodiacal signs or the constellations. So some people question astrology as to not really being a science, but God swears an oath by them in the Quran. So astrology is considered to be a Quranic science, as well as a regular science. The zodiac indicates both periods of time and direction in space. When the people used to use an astrolabe they were on the sea and trying to find the direction, they used they referred to the zodiacal signs to be able to know which direction they were going, so that they wouldn't lose their way on the sea. And these zodiacal signs occur in patterns as intervals around the perimeter of a primal circle, as we'll see. So the zodiacal signs don't really move in a perfect circle, but we draw them symbolically as this is the sign of the fixed stars, which we called it before the spirit of God, but the spirit is beyond this as well. But just for symbolic purposes, we're drawing it to show where the zodiacal signs are in relation to the center. And so another concept that we have to know as we go forward is that the spirit, which is this, the Ruh, moves in a triangular form through the 12 signs with elements and qualities specified. You can see where the spirit moves, like for instance, in this triangle here, or this triangle, or this triangle. Those are how the spirit moves, either in ascending, descending, or horizontal, back to the heavens, down from the heavens, or in a horizontal on earth. The spirit moves, as we've said. Ibn Arabi refers to each of the 12 signs with a Quranic sign. He says Aries, for example, in Surah 37, Ayah 2, those who repel evil. For each one of these 12 signs of Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and so forth, he has a name that he uses for one of the Quranic verses. And this is just an example of Aries, for instance, is those who repel evil. That's from one of the Quranic verses. The zodiac is described as veils that hide the face or presence of God, because above the zodiac is the throne of God, which was upon the waters, that he might try you, which of you is the fairest in actions. And this is Surah 11, Ayah 7. And we'll see it. I don't know if anyone has a Quran handy and they could recite the Arabic for that.
Which one?
11:7. Surah 11, verse 7. It's about the ash.
وكان عرشه على الماء. Yes.
دي سورة هود وهو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض في 6 أيام. That he created heavens and earth in 6 days. وكان عرشه على الماء ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا ولئن قلتم أنكم مبعوثون من بعد الموت ليقولن الذين كفروا أن هذا إلا سحر مبين.
Yes.
Yes, so it's the last part of that verse.
It's about magic. The last part, is it talks about magic?
No.
وكان عرشه على الماء. Is the throne.
Okay. Yes. The throne of God is on water.
That's right. That he might try you. He might test you to see which of you is the fairest in actions. Yes. This is actually the whole of the Sufi Enneagram is just in that one verse, based on what we're gonna see, even how it's confirmed in the macrocosm in the next signs.
Yes.
So there's these are the symbols of the 7 planets that are visible to the naked eye. If you don't have a telescope, you're able to see these 7 planets. And these 7 planets in the heavens, when they form, when they mix with the zodiacal signs, they form like sometimes an equilateral triangle, sometimes a square, sometimes a pentagon, the 5-pointed, 5-lined geometric symbol, and sometimes a hexagon, which is the one on the outside. So a 60-year cycle refers to the division of time and space because we have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour. So the concept of 60 is very important. This allows the equilateral triangle, the square, the pentagon, and the hexagon to form between the movement of the planets in the zodiacal signs. The second major emphasis in traditional cosmology is upon the 7 planets visible to the naked eye. The zodiac is called the heaven of the fixed stars. The planets project themselves on them. Pythagoras referred to this as the music of the spheres. The 12 zodiacal signs and 7 visible planets symbolically revolve in a circular form. That's the circular form of the entire fixed stars. Here, the numbers 6, 10, and 60 become important in the science of balance, which was called Mizan. In Arabic, the 3 consonants that form the word time, zaman, are the same for balance, mizan. So you see it's ze, mim, nun, mim, zun, nun. So they made correspondences between the letters that form time, and they're the same letters that form balance. So this is an important symbolic kind of understanding of the relationship to time and balance. Now we get to this concept, which is the movement of the planets in the zodiacal signs. The following study is of a 60-year movement of Saturn and Jupiter within the zodiac. So Saturn is the red and Jupiter is the blue. So you see here's red and the blue. They're in conjunction. Here the red and the blue are in conjunction. Here the red and blue are in conjunction. This, when you combine it, it forms what's called the Great Trigon, this great triangle that is on the Gurdjieff drawing, the original one. It's a large triangle that touches the centers of the circle. The conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter occur in 20-year intervals from the Great Trigon, this Great Trigon that it creates. In 1940, for instance, it was both in Taurus in 1960. This is the center one. Both were in Capricorn. And then in 1980, both were in Virgo. These are the cold and dry signs of the element Earth. So when Saturn and Jupiter form this Great Trigon, they're forming it with the cold and dry elements, and which are the signs of the element of Earth. From among the planets, Saturn and Jupiter are important in the struggle for moral balance. You'll always read in the traditional texts about the importance of Saturn and Jupiter because this was the furthest that the eye could see. So Saturn in the microcosm corresponds to Abraham and Jupiter to Moses, both symbolizing the spiritual heart. Abraham was the founder of spiritual chivalry or futua, and Moses was given 9 miracles to use against Pharaoh. This symbolic ascent beyond Saturn for Sufis becomes a return home, or back to the center and origin. This is how the Sufis looked at how they would take, if they took a spiritual ascent through the universe, through the manifest, once they got beyond Saturn, then they were ready to go home, kind of, to the throne and to the Corsi. But this is amazing that they form the great trigon. We're not even aware of it in every 60 years. So the study of 1940, 1960, 1980 is based on the work of Keith Critchlow, but then putting it together to form what we're going to be watching is based on my work with the Sufi Enneagram, to understand how the macrocosm also forms an Enneagram. So we've seen 3 of them, 1/3. Now the trigonal relationship of Saturn and Jupiter at 20 years intervals, again 20-year intervals, when they're 120 degrees apart from each other, they create a second equilateral triangle. In 1947, Saturn is in Leo, Jupiter in Sagittarius, that's the left. In 1967, Saturn is in Aries, Jupiter in Leo, that's the center. And in 1987, Saturn is in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Aries, hot and dry signs of the element of fire. So in all cases, they're in the hot and dry signs of the element of fire. In this cosmological schema, Saturn corresponds to Lord and Jupiter to one who knows. This brings the famous tradition to mind: one who knows oneself knows one's Lord. Coming to know oneself then comes in the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, and they are the macrocosmic symbol of the Sufi Enneagram. And now in 1941, both were in Gemini. In 1961, both were in Aquarius. And in 1981, both were in Libra. The conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter that occur in 20-year intervals at 120 degrees, creating a third equilateral triangle. And these are the hot and wet signs of the element of air. All of these correspondences together form the macrocosmic Sufi Enneagram. They are unified by a major astrological phenomena that occurs every 60 years. Their movement will show how the 12 points of the zodiac become the 9 points of the Sufi Enneagram. So we've seen 3 great triangles being formed based on the movements of Saturn and Jupiter every 20 years. So this is a 60-year cycle that takes place every 60 years in the universe that we're not often aware of. So now we see what these symbols are. The images demonstrate the relation between the 60-year cycle and variations in the 9-fold symmetry. The triangular relationships that relate symmetrically in a 9-fold pattern. Left shows 3 equilateral triangles created by the conjunction and trigonal aspects of Saturn and Jupiter superimposed on each other, and this is formed every 60 years. So we see there's one great trigon, here's the other great trigon, and here's the third great triangle, forming the 9-pointed stars. The center, the image shows the dynamic 9-pointed star pattern that Jupiter makes in relation to Saturn. So Jupiter makes a 9-pointed star as it moves in relationship to Saturn. And right, this is the pattern of Saturn. In the same 60-year cycle, Saturn moves slower, and it forms a static 9-pointed star as it moves through the 9 divisions of the circle. So here we see that they're points that create the triangle. Then in Jupiter, it's a pointed star, 9-pointed star. But what Saturn does, because it moves slower, it produces what is called a static geometry of 9 points. So we see them move through cold and dry, earth, hot and dry, fire, and hot and wet signs. Yet the movements of Saturn and Jupiter in the 60-year cycle do not create a 9-pointed star touching the cold and wet water signs of Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer. So why is this? Saturn and Jupiter only move through the cold and wet water signs of Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer when they're in opposition or 180 degrees from each other, and they form a 6-pointed star known as the Seal of Solomon. So they also form the Seal of Solomon when they're 180 degrees opposite of each other. The water signs of cold and wet, Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer, then, symbolize the threefold division of the self, the waters upon which the throne of God rests, and the spiritual heart of the believer, which is this threefold sign that creates the nafsa amare here and the nafsa natere here, or affect, behavior, and reason. Why? And why is this? The 9-point patterns created by Saturn and Jupiter do not move through the cold and wet signs, because water signs, because that is the place of the throne. As the Quran says in confirming the Sufi Enneagram, his throne was upon the waters, upon these three in the heavens, so that he might try you or test you to see which of you is fairest in actions, which is basically the goal of the Sufi Enneagram, to become fair and just. So God is testing us, and he has placed his throne upon the waters, which are these three signs. So the concept of space, where is the throne of God? Ibn Arabi quotes the sacred tradition of the Prophet, who said, "My heavens and my earth embrace me not, but the heart of my believing servant does embrace me." In terms of spiritual chivalry or futuvat, to embrace, because he says embrace me, to embrace means to have experiential knowledge. This is very important, that this system is not based on book knowledge, but it's based on what we experience, the knowledge of what we experience. This experience leads to sensing the presence of God in all that one does. The throne of God, as Ibn Arabi describes it, becomes the spiritual heart that rests upon the waters, because his throne of God is the heart of the believing servant. So the throne of God then becomes our spiritual heart that rests upon the waters. The spiritual heart is also known as the Kaaba of the self, Now, the movement of the soul through the line of the spirit, this here, it's important that we remember, that we recall the three energies that the spirit gives us. The first is for instance, this nafsa natere is also known, we can call it the human soul, and these two we can call nafsa insaniya, and these two we can call the nafsa amare. The nafsa insaniya is our nervous system in our brain. This is the segment on wisdom or cognition. The animal soul is two parts. One part is the natural or the liver and gut, or the other is the vital and the heart. So this is our behavior and this is our affect. Healing is the motion of the soul towards the center, towards the divine spirit. The concept that the soul in space and not the body in material form leads in the healing art is central to understanding traditional psychology. So we want to talk about the soul, which is in here between the spirit and our body, when we're looking at it as the zahir, as the batin. When we're looking at it as the batin, this is our body, and then our soul as we move towards our spirit. So everything is concerned with what goes on here and not concerned with our body, because the moral healing takes place within our soul, that then its effects can be seen in our body. The traditional view of space looks for the continuous movement of the soul within the space of the Sufi Enneagram. So this is why we call it the line of the spirit that is working with on top of what are within our soul to help us to try to reach this center point. So the soul is moved through the breath spirit. That's how our soul moves, is through our breath. The breath spirit or spirit has three centers. The vital spirit, which is hot and dry, has its center in the left ventricle of the heart, here, preserves life and causes the body to grow. The psychic spirit, cold and dry, has its center in the brain, causes sensation and movement. It is the source of movement and reason. The natural spirit, hot and wet, has its center in the liver and is concerned with the reception of food. In the macrocosmic and microcosmic scale, the breath spirit acts as the link between the body, soul, and spirit. It's the rhythmic flow of the breath that makes the balance and perfect equilibrium of the elements possible. In the Sufi Enneagram, it is symbolized by the line of the spirit or movement and change. This all relates to the Nafas al-Rahman, or the breath of the compassionate, that when God says to something be and it is, he is saying it with his breath. The breath is saying be. And so everything comes into existence in that way. Within our body then, it's also the way we heal is through, another way of healing is through the breath. That's why zikrullah is so important, because it's done with the breath, so that moral healing takes place through our breathing, different patterns of the way we breathe and the way we pronounce the names of God, and how we incorporate, of course, the names of God.
May I comment on with something
Yes.
here? Because this, actually, this is very, very insightful for me. A couple of weeks ago, I've attended a course called The Presence of Heart, or Hudur al-Qalb. The course was based on a scientific research that has been done by a company called the Heart Math. They've been researching for 20 years the relationship between the heart and the brain, and how the heart and the brain should be in coherence. And when they are not in coherence, the body, the entire human, gets disrupted. And the methods that they are using to get this heart-brain in coherence is through breathe. The breathing technique that they used it in relevance to the hertz, or the vibration of the earth, which happened to be 0.1 hertz, the vibration of the earth, 0.1 hertz. So they divided it on two halves, and using the breathing, inhaling in 5 seconds and exhaling in 5 seconds, brings back the coherence between the heart and the brain into the normal, as if if we are in synchronization with the universe, automatically it leads to being heart brain coherent bodies. And that was an amazing thing.
Amazing, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just on that same note, someone was just telling me that they found that the heart has neurons, that it may be that the heart is not always just listening to what the brain says, that the heart sometimes through its own neurons doesn't agree necessarily with what the brain is saying. So that the heart then, which is the center for the breath, is so important, and its connection to the brain, of course. But that's fascinating. That's a wonderful study that they've done. And to know what the breathing techniques are, that, you know, you breathe in 5 and take out 5.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we're almost to the end. So we can do one more slide and then have questions.
Okay, so one more slide and then we'll open to questions.
Yeah. So the Sufi Enneagram incorporates both the manifest and the hidden, signs upon the horizons and within ourselves. It connects to the macrocosmic through the 12 zodiacal signs that become, sorry, I think the doorbell rang, no one's here. Oh, no. Sorry, someone was here, okay. So the Sufi Enneagram incorporates both the manifest and the hidden, signs upon the horizon and within ourselves. It connects to the macrocosm through the 12 zodiacal signs that become 9 when Saturn and Jupiter do not form a 9-pointed star or Enneagram in the water signs of Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. Because these symbolize the threefold division of the self upon which rests the throne of God, the spiritual heart of the believer, and the Kaaba of the self. Movement is that of the soul through the breath, spirit, all elements of the traditional concept of space.
Okay. Okay. Now, questions.
I think we had one more that we did. Actually, we added, and where you put the Arabic in, but we've had, maybe it's not on yet.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
So Brother Ahmad added the Arabic of that verse that, was it Rania recited?
Yes, Rania.
Yeah, yeah. So this is, I mean, it's just absolutely amazing that there's such a Quranic confirmation for the concept of the Sufi Enneagram. I mean, I just, it's like, you know, another one of those amazing facts about the universe and our connection to the universe that so often we forget about or we're not conscious of.
Yeah. I think this is the, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the last one, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
The symbol of the Sufi Enneagram, or Vajullah, 66, I think, or 67, follows the system of traditional signs through the elements of dynamics, matter, color, surface, shape, and space, leading to the confirmation of God's signs in both the macrocosm and the microcosmic worlds. So be happy to ask.
Nice. You have a question?
Yes, I have a question on the slide that is showing the zodiac signs with the.
I have a couple of questions as well about those because which one?
No, but before this slide, the first.
This one?
No, before that one. It shows the yes, that one. So this diagram is showing three geometric form: the triangle, I think the square, and
the pentagon,
the
and the,
pentagon. Yes, the pentagon. Yes. So and then there is small circles around, on the periphery, on the circle. What does this mean, and what is behind this?
okay, this is trying to coordinate, like this color is coordinating with this here. So the hexagon, this is one point of the hexagon, second point, third point, fourth point, fifth point, sixth point of the hexagon. The blue is showing the pentagon. So here's the blue, the pentagon, that has 5 points. The square has 4 points, so that's the green. There's one.
Okay, and what is why?
It's showing the geometry, the concept of geometry that we don't even know about and recognize between the planets and the zodiacal signs.
So the rectangle is the square is is related to the 9th division of the circle in on a certain points that correspond to numbers that is written here, but it's too small to read actually.
Oh, okay.
1D, 2D, or 32.
1,
these
2,
numbers.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Sorry. So I was reading. Okay.
Yeah,
so the square is 12, 3, 6, and I think 9.
Yeah.
So
3,
it represents something, or
12, 3, 6, and 9. Yes.
Is there a meaning behind this?
No, because we're still at 12. I mean, we can find, of course, very important meanings to the concept of the square, and because the dome, for instance, on an architecture, the dome is the symbol of heaven, and the square is the symbol of earth. Yeah. So they have, as geometric forms, they have their own symbolic significance. But this is not necessarily directly related to the Enneagram, because we're still. It's just showing that these are possibles, and it's based on Keith Critchlow's work called Islamic Patterns.
Okay. Yes. I can relate to Keith.
Yes.
A study on Islamic pattern regarding the symbolic meaning of geometric forms.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry to ask, but how is this related to the zodiac signs in Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, and?
Well, that's the 12. The numbers 12 are the zodiacal signs, and we didn't put the symbols on, but then when these 4 are showing you how the planets relate to the zodiacal signs. So the planets at some point form this triangle. At sometimes they form the square. In the relation of planets,
in the movement.
Yes. Yeah, in their movements. Yeah.
That's very exciting, and it's inspiring.
Yes.
It's inspiring, actually, especially in the next slide. It shows that how Jupiter and Saturn are moving.
Yes.
It means that we are resembling the same movie. When moving in the Enneagram, when our soul moves in the Enneagram, it means that it reflects the cosmic movement.
Yes. Yes. Very good. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So that's the correspondence between the manifest and the baten, and the signs upon the horizon and the signs within ourself. They're all interconnected. So
do you suggest that if we want to better understand ourselves, we need to understand what is meant by the zodiac signs in relation to the movement itself and the characteristic of each, the things that we were saying about hot and dry, and how it related to colors.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I sent Brother Ahmed a summary of what an astrological chart when you do the Indra report and you have it
Uh-huh.
names what your elements are, and someone has 30% air and 20% water and so forth, what each one in terms of personality means. So that's another way of understanding someone's type or personality, or where they you know, what their method of moral imbalance is and so forth. So yes, it's all interconnected, and it certainly helps to know some astrology in order to be able to you know, increase understanding.
Not really. Mhm. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I have a question regarding the Surah Hud, and his throne was upon the water.
Okay.
I'm keeping looking at the verse and say that I'm thinking, why he's saying upon the water and not in the water, and the water here, what is the ta'wil of the water? Does it mean the heart here, or that the location is in the heart and it's the what?
Well, in this case, it's the threefold division of the self that are the water signs. So the throne is not in the water, it's on the water. So that means that above what we're seeing here, there's another layer of the universe, which is the throne of God. And that throne is resting on these three signs, which are the signs, the water signs. And then that is also where the heart of the believer is, because the throne of God is in the heart of the believer. And that's also symbolically relating us to the Kaaba, which is also the heart of the believer. So it's not that the throne is in the waters, the throne is on the waters. It's above, it's like a ship on top of the water. So these are the water signs, and the ship on top of it is the throne of God, which of course extends through the whole of the universe.
Yes. Okay.
But that God put the throne on the waters in order to test us and to see which of us are fairest indeed.
Yes, yes, that's really inspiring. Actually, the last statement you have mentioned, Professor Laleh, because I recalled now while Ahmed is asking about the location of the throne. As Ibn Arabi stating is that Kaaba has many layers, and it's not just the manifested one on the material world. I mean, in our world, which is the mulk, there is other five. Sometimes he's stating in 6, 7, and then in other place he says that there is 5 layers or 5 worlds. I mean, presence, yes, above the material world, which is the al-mulk,
right.
Malakut, and Jabarut, and
yes,
Lahut and Hahut.
Yes.
And the large belongs to, I think, above the Jabarut. I'm not sure, but it's like a vertical movement.
Yes. Yes, that's very, yes. So, you know, we need to know more about those are spiritual worlds that he's describing. And by knowing them within ourselves, because when we're the microcosm, whatever is in the macrocosm, we contain within ourselves. So it's the spiritual journey where we go through the different presences of the Lahut, Nasut, and Jabarut, and yes, Malakut.
Rania, you have a question?
Actually, it's I'm not sure how to frame this question as well, because now when you are explaining the verse from Hud, I remember reading in an hadith, okay, that before God created anything, he was all alone, and his throne was on the water, and he wrote everything about qadars, about everyone, and then he created the heaven and earth.
Yes.
Okay, so this was, and I think when you were saying this, it's related, and I want to know because for example, I'm a Libra. I am a Libra. Okay, so my element is air.
Yes.
So how does this fit on this model?
Well, that it goes back to the the sign of matter, the one on matter, brother. Let's see, I don't know which number it was, but that means that is, as I was saying, if you do the astrological chart here, that one, yeah, we just saw it, yeah. If you do the astrological chart, this would be, for instance, Libra. This would be hot and wet. So that's one of the elements that are taken into consideration in your birth chart. But because it also involves where the planets are and where the other, where basically the planets are, as well as the 4 elements within your sign. So then it tells you a lot more about it. But it may be that basically your temperament is hot and wet, your misage, so that you would be in balance. If you became out of balance, then you would need to eat, for instance, cold and dry foods to get back into balance. But if you're in balance in hot and wet, then you just continue doing whatever it is you're doing because you're balanced. Okay. That's in terms of physical. But in terms of the Enneagram, then the moral healing, if you don't have an if you're not one of the qualities, negative qualities on the chart, then you're already in a state of moderation in terms of temperance, for instance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a question regarding this cycle, the 60-year cycle of Jupiter and Saturn, because I've read that the number 60 has a great significance in the Babylonian civilization, and they used to count from 1 to 60, and then the 60 was the maximum number, and then they tend to repeat the number, something like this. Do you think this came from that cycle, or is there a relation?
I think it's related because the Babylonians, particularly the Sabians, who are mentioned in the Quran as being Ahl Kitab, they were also very conscious of the universe and the stars and the movements. So it could be that they noticed the 60-year movement of Saturn and Jupiter and said, well, then time, that's it. Then now it's a new cycle.
Yes.
Time. Yeah. It may even be that the Mayas and the Aztec also understood the concept of the 60-year cycle because they paid attention to the stars, which we tend to ignore.
Yeah. Another question regarding the same verse, because that God created the earth in 6 days. Why 6? I mean, 6 here. Do you have any ta'wil for the number 6 here? 6 and the 7th day.
Yeah, no, I don't. But then the Quran says that every day is like 1,000 years, so it's a lot longer than 6 days. A day with God is 1,000 days, a year or something. So it's a lot more than just 6 days. But certainly, the 3, 6, and 9 and the importance of them on the Enneagram. But I don't know of any tawhid or anything on the 6 days. What actually that means and what that relates to.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
If you have, you can get my email address from Brother Ahmad.
Mike has a question.
Okay.
Yes, I have that on the another slide on in the previous session, and
The previous session.
but before going to this one, it's good that you got this slide.
This one. Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. I understand that the one on the left that shows the movement of Jupiter. Why? How do you differentiate between Jupiter and Saturn in terms of why the shapes are different?
Yeah, well,
they both correspond to the same 9 divisions.
right.
So why are Jupiter is related to triangles while Saturn is related to the pointed stars or the 9 points?
Well, in geometry, they have what's called a dynamic geometry and static geometry. So this is an example of dynamic geometry because this is exactly how Saturn moves in the universe. So it actually creates these points. Jupiter moves and creates points, but it moves like in lines. And so this is called a static geometry. I mean,
do you mean that Saturn moves? Sorry, Jupiter in the diagram on the left.
Yes.
Making the triangle.
Yes, here.
Oh, okay. And Saturn moves, but not forming a triangle. It's forming another shape. I think.
Right. It depends on, like, this is the 20-year cycle. They create this, and this is another 20-year cycle, and another 20-year cycle. So if you were to superimpose this on this, then you would see the connection between the two. These two would need to be superimposed. But I've separated them so you can see the difference between a dynamic geometry and a static geometry. So whether you draw a geometric form like a star, or you draw it as a, pentagon or polygon. As a
that's why it's called dynamic, and that's why it's called static.
Yes.
Okay.
So
okay, what about the one in the middle?
Yeah. So not only do they create this great trigon, but they also are examples of both static and dynamic geometry. So this is them together, and then this is how Jupiter moves on its own. If you take out Saturn, and this is how Saturn moves on its own, taking out Jupiter. But you could put them on each other, and and have a different design.
And how the drawing in the center was created?
This one is Jupiter, and it's Jupiter. It's a 7-year intervals of 60 years, and this is the 7-year cycle or intervals of 60 years for Saturn. This is them together, Saturn and Jupiter, but this is the 60-year cycle, and then this is the 7-year cycle. In 7 years, they do this. We're looking at different patterns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So 7 years per 60.
Yeah, this is every 60 years, and then this is every 7 years, and this is every 7 years.
Okay. Okay.
We were doing basically the 60-year 20-20-20 to make 60. But they also form these patterns every 7 years.
Yeah, every 7 years these patterns is created. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So, and how it is related to Sufi Enneagram?
Well, it's not.
We were just understanding the movement.
Right. Yes.
So you mean while the craftsmen are doing these patterns, they are actually representing moving in the space, the cosmic space.
Yes.
Or the zodiac signs, or the zodiac signs.
Yes. Yes. They may not be conscious of it, but the master usually was. Yeah. So
I believe they are conscious. I believe they are conscious.
Yeah. But so the connection. It's just that both in the Zahir and in the Batin, that we have the concept of the 9 numbers and 9, the Enneagram, Ennead. So that's the connection, is that the Enneagram, Ennea, meaning 9, also has a reflection in the Zahir world, as well as the Batin world within us.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
So do you think that?
I want to ask another question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ahmed. I'm going to another slide. So.
Okay. I was asking after that. I mean, 7 years from this, and then 7 years, 7 years, and after that it goes back. Or
yes.
What? I mean,
yes.
Because it's because the first one, this pattern happens every 60 years, right?
Right.
No, actually
20 every 20. One triangle every 20 years.
Okay, I mean, after if we take the 7 years interval,
right.
So this from this to this 7 years, from this to this 7 years, and then what happens?
This is every 7 years this takes place, and every 7 years this takes place. If you separate the 2 cycles from each other, but if you place them on each other, place them on top of each other, then you would get the 7-year cycle of both Jupiter and Saturn. But this is the 60-year cycle. So you can see here, for instance, in the 60-year cycle, this here is exactly where Jupiter is, and this is where Saturn is. In the 60 years.
Which slide are you looking at?
The one here in front of us.
This one, okay.
The one that says the concept that the images demonstrate. So here you can see this where they both are here, and then here this is Jupiter, and then this is Saturn.
So this is Jupiter and this is Saturn, but this is Saturn and Jupiter together.
Yes, and this is every 60 years, 20-year cycles. And this is every 7 years.
It's every 7 years.
Every 7 years.
So this is the form of Jupiter every 7 years alone.
Yes.
And this is the form of Saturn every 7 years alone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it keeps cycling like this, keeps cycling like this.
So it changes.
Yes.
Sorry, it changes. Every 7 years there is another shape.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
Okay. So and both of them creates a 9 points on the Enneagram, on the circle. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Which is the 3 great trigon. It depends. This is when they are 120 degrees from each other. Then there's one where there's the Star of David is, or Seal of Solomon, when they're opposite each other, 180 degrees. So it depends also on the degrees that they are from each other that the patterns are created.
Yes.
Different patterns.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So, okay.
So, which slide do you need to ask about, May?
37.
37. Okay.
No.
Go ahead.
Yes. You're stating that when the central point enters the material world as potential, it is the number 1. I'm not sure that I understand the meaning of the statement. How the center point enters the material world? What do you mean by this?
Well, it can't be. Can't be 0. So everything stems from the number 1. So like 2 is 1 plus 1. 3 is 1 plus 1 plus 1.
Understood.
So, and then because of the fact that means unity and Tawheed, so everything goes back to Tawheed. Everything goes back to 1.
Yeah. I mean, when the centering point enters the material world as potential,
Right.
you
Because
mean it creates number one.
yes, that's right.
Number one is created at the
Yes.
moment.
Right. Yes.
And that happened يعني at the creation process, يعني when the world was created.
Yeah, you could say that, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And in the slide 38, please.
Okay.
Yes. In the concept of shape, here you're stating that each sector of the circle correspond to a certain aspects, the spiritual, biological, and physical one, physical two, بعدين cognitive. How did you يعني figure out these يعني attributes or
well, they're there. We've gone, we went through each one. Like, for instance, that over here, spiritual, biological, the affect, emotion. This is the Qovat Shahvaniya, which is to preserve the species. It's called lust in English, but this is, God gave us the ability to reproduce the human species. And that comes from this segment. But this segment is also called affect, and this segment is also called attraction to pleasure. This segment is located in the liver, and it's unconscious in that you can't train it. You have to discipline it, or
okay.
yeah. So you can look at it. You can look at the behavior one in the same way, or you can go spiritual, biological of cognition, spiritual, biological of behavior, spiritual, biological of affect. So you can either go through all of them at one, or you can go through each one at different stages. But the point was that no matter what, somebody may be talking about the rational soul, and then someone else may be talking about cognition, someone else may be talking about the brain, but we need to remember that these are all levels of the same thing, but we just have different names for it.
Okay. And when you were stating later in slide 40 that, for example, there are numbers like, yes, ignorance, disbelief, and so forth. I understand that the fear, rashness, cowardice, for example, is related to the نفس الأمارة بالسوء.
Yes.
And the behavioral aspect, I mean, of the self.
Yes.
But I'm not sure why we chose courage. I mean,
well, these
yes.
These are the four cardinal virtues, they're called. And from the time of early...
How is courage is يعني you're stating here that courage is the main manner or moral
it's the courage
that needs,
yes.
that needs to be, that affects other morals, other things. يعني we're stating that more courage, self-esteem, and wisdom are the three major يعني major moral
yeah, they're the
virtues. Stating virtues that affect other things, other sub virtues, let's say.
Yes,
sub virtues.
Yes. So what
how this was, is it Ahmed Bouni who stated?
No, this comes actually in the Western world. The four virtues of wisdom, temperance, and self-esteem, and courage, and justice. The Western world says they come from Plato, but actually, if you read one of Plato's dialogues, you find out that these four virtues came from the Zoroastrians, because Socrates says in Plato's dialogue that if you want to know how to bring up children, you should follow what the Zoroastrians do when they're bringing up their prince, the young prince. They give him 4 tutors, one who's an expert in courage, one expert in wisdom, one expert in temperance, and the other expert in justice. So these 4 actually came from the time of the Zoroastrians. But in the science in Ilm al-Akhlaq, in the science of ethics, they're called the philosophical virtues, because we also have virtues like taqwa or, iman. These are all virtues that are more religious virtues, but these are called the philosophical virtues, and these are the ones that related to the Enneagram, so that it became anybody from any religion could be, this would relate to them. It didn't mean just Muslims. But if they had used at the,
if you have a balance, courage, self-esteem, and wisdom, you will be you'll be in just, okay? And it means that Iman is at the highest form.
Yes, yeah. But as I was saying, for instance, cowardice, fear, rashness as examples of courage, there are many more in the books on ethics other than cowardice that would be a lack of courage. It's not that these are set. These you could change, but we just use one as an example. Or timidity and envy. You can have other words, other vices, or razila for each one of these courage, temperance, and wisdom. Other than the ones that are shown on the chart. They're just giving one example.
Understood. So the lack of courage, it means that other, more of radila will occur,
Yes.
other, okay, but it is caused by the lack of courage.
That's right. Yes. And that's our behavioral segment. Courage relates to how we behave, how much courage we have to preserve. So because courage is, if we go back to that 30, I think it was 38, courage represents the preserving ourselves as an individual. That was the behavioral segment. So when we show courage is when we are able to protect ourselves as an individual. If someone is going to attack us or assault us or whatever, we need to have courage, which is anger, to be able to have enough energy to fight back against someone who, for instance, is assaulting us. So that's why courage is related to behavior, whereas related to affect and
yes. Yes. And another question, it might be also related to the first course. The number 4, for example, for rationals, it's accompanied. There is 4 and then plus.
Yes.
As indication to just indication for too much of courage.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And the minus just means too little.
And why is I'm sorry that it's actually I am inspired by that. We can relate the geometric form to the movement of the soul or movement of our and maybe manners, change of manners are related to the geometric forms, I mean.
Yes.
And geometry in general. So I'm just trying to understand how numbers are reflecting these by geometry. It means that numbers are related to these manners by geometry.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Because like Al-Buni says, for instance, numbers are from the spiritual world, and letters, for instance, are from the physical world. So you could also say numbers are from the spiritual world, but geometry then is from the material world, where it's geometry expresses the personality of numbers. So like a square is the personality of the number 4.
Yes, the physical form of numbers.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, it's how
Okay,
number
thank you.
4 is manifested in nature,
The material.
in the
Yes.
material. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think no more questions. If there is no more,
Well, I want to thank you all so much, and Brother Ahmed for all your help and organizing everything. Thank you so much. And bye for all your wonderful questions, and Rania, good questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And in case anybody has any further questions, I'm sure we can send it by email. And
yes, I'll be happy to answer.
Of
Sure.
course, we'll have to do that after, trying to absorb all this.
Yes, it's too much of information, and it is not just information. Actually, each slide needs to be. We need to be like do a kind of meditation, contemplation, and in order to understand or grasp. I mean, fully connect to this.
Yes, it is. It's a lot to take in. Yes. Yeah. But over time, as you go back and see if they have questions, be fine. I'll be happy to answer.
inshallah.
Okay.
Okay.
Inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Leila.
Thank you very much. Yes. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
شكرا.